We are talking about the creature feature Beast of the Water, this one also known as ENUATTII, and this one is directed by Rashard Santiago in his feature film directorial debut. Star-wise, it's relatively light. The only name here who I recognised was Gigi, Edgley, who was in the Farscape TV show. Anyway, this focuses on a group of university students, scientists, and their kind of lecturer, and they have kind of on the brink of discovering something amazing, possibly the Fountain of Youth, which they have linked back to this kind of old Native American tribe that seems to have disappeared. Anyway, their kind of like proposal to go and kind of investigate further is thrown out by the university. So a private pharmaceutical company essentially offers to fund the remainder of the research. However, this comes with strings attached. So as they go to discover the source of this kind of apparent miracle water, it soon is transpired that this kind of pharmaceutical company has nefarious kind of plans ultimately, and there seems to be some type of strange creature that may well be the kind of like the spirit protector of this particular kind of area lurking around. So let's talk about Beast of the Water. So what works first of all with this movie? For me, I think the concept here is an interesting one. The actual concept of the creature being a kind of construct of water, so a little bit like the kind of the Abyss, if you remember that movie. But this is a reptilian-looking kind of like creature, but it just happens to be kind of like formed or created out of water, which I found interesting. I mean, it acts a little bit like the movie Ghost Shark, where it kind of can come out of puddles and things like this. So maybe it's not the best movie to be compared to, but realistically it's probably the nearest one I can compare it to is Ghost Shark, so there you go. But it was an interesting concept. So that was kind of quite fun. And I've got to say, for a low budget movie, the visual or kind of like the monster effects here are quite effective to a point. I mean they kind of the creature suit itself, it looks fairly impressive. I don't think it's shot particularly well, we'll come on to that, but the actual creature effects, are on, an impressive side for the budget. Now, Santiago, who directed this, actually comes from a special effects background, so obviously, and he actually was responsible for the creature design and creation himself, so obviously it's kind of taken a lot of care in it. And there was a couple of characters here I liked. We have this kind of, this big hulking kind of like, one of the sort of military guys that is kind of escorting them. He seems to really be the only character to have some nuance to him. He's kind of, he's on the sort of the side of the kind of the pharmaceutical company, but he seems to have a little bit of reservations about what they're doing and tries to kind of almost be kind of mediate between the kind of the two kind of groups, if you see what I mean. So he had the most kind of nuance to his character, whilst everyone else is like, a virtuous scientist or a bad kind of, corporate guy, essentially. But what doesn't work? Okay, so it's one of those kind of typical, what I class as sci-fi movie plots. And what I mean by that, I mean talking about Sci-Fi Channel. And to tell you what I mean is, you're watching this because it's a creature feature, but the bulk of the running time is spent on bad humans who want to do things for selfish means and that kind of stuff, and that's ultimately the bulk of the running time here, with the creature not showing up really until the kind of like we have an hour past this movie, and even then we don't see a huge amount of it. So it's a typical this is what I mean by the typical kind of sci-fi movie formula, where it has a kind of creature feature, but because it doesn't have the budget to kind of show you lots of scenes of that, it kind of pads out the running time by having this kind of like bad guy humans to kind of like give the plot something to do while it's kind of just getting to the few minutes of creature feature time that we actually see on screen. And it's true of this movie as well. I've got to say, I thought the acting overall was not the strongest, unfortunately. There are a couple of characters who I think fare a little better. I've mentioned the one character who I like, I think Titus, the guy's name is, who played him. That's his pseudonym anyway. There's a couple of other ones that are okay, but for a lot of them I feel struggle. And we have this kind of our main kind of military bad guy. He's just so wooden, unfortunately. I mentioned the effects. Now, the effects are, they're impressive for the budget, but I don't feel they're shot particularly. They're not really shot in a dynamic way, and that's true of a lot of the film here. It just is shot on a very kind of like mundane, kind of uninspired way. So it kind of ends up looking like a kind of a Power Rangers monster in it, like a rubber monster suit sort of thing. And although I think the actual creature effect could have looked quite cool, the way it's shot, it makes it look like it's kind of a creature that you'll see in an episode of Power Rangers. Unfortunately, it's too, you know, it's just not shot enough. It's not, the cinematography isn't fantastic. The use of kind of light and shadow isn't particularly well used here. So I feel like the cinematography wasn't too strong. And the story really is just very, very mundane, and it's kind of a typical thing where, you know, humans are kind of ignoring nature, etc. So it's a fairly uninspired story. So, and that's the theme of this whole film. Unfortunately, it has a couple of good ideas, a couple of interesting characters, but they're never really fleshed out. It never really does anything, I feel, which is kind of particularly kind of interesting and above. It's not a terrible film. Like I've said, there are for the low budget, I do feel there's some effort been made here. I felt like more time could have been spent with the script, certainly with the cinematography, and a bit more of this of the character development, and not have just so simplistic sort of characters who are one thing or the other. The kind of the ones of, well, there's a couple of examples where they're not, but there's not much to it, unfortunately. So it just becomes a very basic film. So I'll give this movie a 4 out of 10. There's worse creature features, but ultimately this one is uninspired, like the actual creature in the movie itself. So 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to you next time. Bye for now.